Hello and welcome to this episode of Om Talks. Our guest today is my dear friend Sonia Hunt. She is a well known author, in fact, a best selling one, uh, a well renowned global coach, and a speaker on health and wellness. And from the time I have known her, I think she's one of the main voices when it comes to marketing. She's, in fact, a chief marketing officer. Sonia, welcome to Om.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
And joining us today, as usual, would be my colleague Soumya Singh.
Hello.
Hi
Hi.
there.
And I have known Sonia for some time. In fact, Sonia's book has been around for some time, and I want to take this opportunity to let others know about this. I don't have a hard copy here,
I,
but
I have a hard copy right
oh,
here.
that's the one. And I think the book has been around, but nothing compelled me to go for it. And when I really read the book, I realized what a thing I've been missing. And the same thing goes about people in our life. Sonia has been around. I've only known a facet of her. I've never known what she's gone through and what she made out of it. So there's an inspirational story, not just for me. Millions have been inspired by her. So I'm a latecomer to this. But at the same time, I would let her come and talk about it. Let us hear from her. Sonia, over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story. So, first of all, I'll start off with I am first generation Indian American living in the US. I was born and raised on the East Coast, but I live in San Francisco, California now for a very long time. And I actually came out here. I was recruited by a tech startup after college, and I came out here during the .com days. So I'm also dating myself, but it was an incredible time to come out here. And and I have an engineering background, so engineering to product to marketing, and have been a chief marketing officer, as you said, for a very long time, working with very large global brands in the startup world as well. So, took a very traditional route, from Indian parents' perspective. I'm the
Yeah.
engineer. My sister is a doctor. My brother's an attorney. So, you kind of get one of each. And but my story is a little bit more complicated in a sense than all my siblings. So at age 3, I was diagnosed with chronic conditions. So severe food allergies, severe asthma, severe environmental allergies. And the way that we found that out was very unfortunate. So, my parents came from India. My dad actually came in the 60s, and he did his undergrad, his master's, his MBA. He got married in between degrees, and my mom came from India. And then they, started having kids. And they were very social people. They are very social people, I should say. And they started building a community in Philadelphia, where we're from. And those, friends that they met were just like them. They were from India. Most of them had just gotten married, had just come from university, for better opportunity. So all these folks started getting together 4 or 5 times a week and having dinner parties, right? We love to eat, we love to drink, we love to dance. That's my, my parents' world. And it was during one of these dinner parties where all the kids were outside, playing, and somebody brought out a tray of snacks because we all kind of ate dinner together later. And one of those snacks happened to be peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And my mom believes it was probably the first time I ever had it at age 3. And so what happened was immediately I got hives all over my body. I went into anaphylaxis. So what that means is that my throat started to close, my chest got really tight, almost think like you're having a heart attack, but I'm 3 years old. And I basically couldn't breathe, so I was turning blue. And the saving grace is that many of my parents' friends at that time were physicians. So as the kids are screaming, somebody comes out, and then all of a sudden, they knew what to do, and then we're off to the ER. Mind you, like, there was no medication in the house to deal with anaphylaxis at that time, right? So, thankfully, knock on wood, I was saved that day, and it was a very interesting diagnosis because my parents didn't know that people could be allergic to food, right? Because in India, right, you go to the market every day, the market comes to you, it's fresh, right? You're not buying boxed and packaged and keeping it in your refrigerator or your freezer for months like we are here in the US. And, it's essentially farm to table in India, opposite here in the US. And so they were just floored. They couldn't believe that somebody could be allergic to food. And that started now a trajectory for my life, right? So for, decades, essentially, we managed the best that we could. And my doctors became our best friends. And what that means is the diagnosis, the information we got from my Western doctors then, which was there's no cure for food allergies, and, just don't eat the food you're allergic to, which is very difficult, is the same information that doctors will tell you today. In 2024, there's no cure for food allergies. Please don't eat the food you're allergic to. And that is a mess. And for my mom, especially, she had, three first-generation American kids now, right, who are kind of also fighting their culture because we're in between two cultures, East and West. And so, much of the food we ate at home was Indian food, but there's also a ton of American food that you can imagine the labeling back in the late 70s, right? Like, it just was horrendous. It's so much better today, but it's still pretty bad. So we somehow, I always say that somehow for decades, I was barely surviving. And what that looked like, how it manifested is throughout, from age 3 plus, 3 decades, I, of course, had many incidents, right? We did the best that we could. So that would mean that, sometimes I would get hives on my body. Sometimes I would be itchy inside, but nothing physically on my body. Sometimes, there was anaphylaxis. And sometimes it would be an asthma attack. So I was constantly in and out of the hospital for decades. And I also was taking for many, decades, strong steroid medication, because that's what Western medicine does. When you have something like food allergies, they give you medication to suppress your symptoms if you have another attack like an anaphylaxis, right? So that's kind of the protocol. And in my life, unfortunately, I've had 4 anaphylaxis on the ER table, almost dead incidents. And the last one was in 2008. And that's really what I call my rock bottom. And it completely started a brand new, trajectory and journey, from which now I knew that I had to become really empowered around this and figure this out, because if I had a 5th anaphylaxis, I believe that I would be dead. So that is kind of the backstory of really what started, this whole journey. And I will say, and I know we'll get into all this, but from the moment I made that decision, which was, in the ER in 2008, to, actually then going on a journey to really figure out and get to things like root cause of my allergies. In 2020, we found out that all of my over 32 severe food allergies are absent, which means I'm in remission. So I, knock on wood, I've been in remission for 4 years. And then I wrote a book about it. And now I'm out there trying to help people to get empowered around their health.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So 2008, you said, right? It's quite some time. I mean, so how did you make it happen? I mean, a lot of us can relate to the point where you are hitting the rock bottom. Most of the time, we don't know in the issues that we are going through. Whether that's a rock bottom or not, in retrospect, yes. But then there was an inflection that happened there, right? So how did that come along? What did you do to make that happen?
Yeah, and there was so much done, right? So the first thing was, so that 2008 incident was actually the worst anaphylaxis that I had had, the most toxic. And I say that, because it actually left me with hives all over my body for 1 year.
Wow.
So remember I was saying when I was 3, the instant reaction was hives and anaphylaxis. This incident was the same. It was hives and anaphylaxis. And the hives were very large in diameter. And I was actually in the ER for 3 days because what can happen with anaphylaxis is that you can have an attack and then think of it like an earthquake and an aftershock. You can have an aftershock again. And because the hives were so large, the ER doctor felt that we just need to keep you here. So, I'm hooked up to many IVs and taking many medications. And my parents are on the East Coast, kind of like on their way as my neighbor is calling to say what happened. And so I had like a good 3 days to just sit in an ER, lie in a bed, and really just think about everything. And as you can imagine, just in my mind, everything's like flashing before me, right? Like, have I done everything that I've wanted to do with my time on this earth, right? Have I lived the way that I want to live, right? Am I spending my moments, being who I want to be with the right people in the right job? Like everything is flashing before me, right? I'm also thinking, oh my gosh, I have to call my boss. Who's going to work on these deliverables? My team needs me. Like so much is flashing. And then you go through almost these emotions, like, of course I was scared. I didn't know, right, if that was going to be it. And all the things I didn't take care of, like who's going to watch my dog, like all these things are I'm going through my head. And the other side of it became like pure disgust, to be very honest. I became like thoroughly disgusted that I was back laying on an ER table almost dead again. And it wasn't about blame on like doctors or Western medicine or anything. It was really about looking at my role in all of this, right? And when you're diagnosed at age 3, it's very normal for your parents and your physicians to take care of everything. But as I got older, I could have been empowered, right? I could have kind of taken ownership of it. And I would say that there was a lot of realizations that happened in that, ER table, realizations that I had pretty much lived my life on autopilot. I let other people run the show for my health and even kind of in my career, right? Like once I got that first job in Silicon Valley, then I was just kind of moving jobs because somebody knew me and they were like, hey, we've got this great opportunity. We need you here. But it never really stopped to think of like, is that really what I want? Right. So there's all of these kinds of things swirling through, while I was there for 3 days. And I essentially kind of came back to this realization that I am managing my health wrong. And I am also living life wrong. And it was a very, very sad and deep realization because I felt like I was purposeless at the time. I didn't really know me. I didn't trust me, right? I'm an intelligent woman, right? I in 2008, of course, I'd been out of college. And so I'm like, I have all these degrees and everything. Like, why is it that I'm relying on everyone else to run my life and I'm not taking ownership? Why are the doctors running my health? Why not me? Right? Why am I letting kind of companies tell me my worth? Why not me? So there was a tiny, tiny, tiny little spark that got lit when I was laying in the ER. And so I started to kind of talk to the universe and make kind of a pact. And I said, if I'm able to get out of here, right, with no other, aftershocks or anything, I promise you that I will change everything, like everything in my entire life. And, with conviction, I made that promise to the universe. And I always say, because the universe has a sense of humor, that's why I had hives for 1 year of my life, to make sure that I would really make good on it, right? So it's just, there's so many realizations at that time. And now it became about, okay, how do we do this? Right. And in this newly empowered state, the first thing I did was I said to myself that this has to be a journey of healing. And the first thing I need to do right now is I got to heal my body, because, it's in such dire state, right? We've got to, just take rest. I was, again, taking a lot of medication to suppress the hive so more would not come out. But that time period, that 1 year that it took for the hives to go away, was a very big, like, call it R&D phase of strategy, right? Of visioning, of mission, of talking to many, many, many different doctors, and putting together like a plan of how I'm going to do this. And then once that body was healed, because of course I needed it to be strong, right, to start doing what I was going to do, then I was able to go about it. And I write about this in my book, and I call I will say that, of course I Googled and I said, I looked for like a program. As an engineer, I'm like, I need a program to follow. There's no program. So I said, okay, I'm going to develop something on my own. And one of the biggest realizations I'll say I had in the ER was that there was compounded detriment to my mental, spiritual, and emotional health because of my physical health issues. And that realization in the ER led me to now, over this 1 year that I was doing strategy, look at, myself and my health holistically.
Beautiful.
Uh, yeah, it is actually very wonderful to hear your story, and I mean, I can only imagine how much difficult this journey would have been for you. You mentioned that what this chronic illness took a toll on your mental health, and this is where I want to, I mean, get a more understand your thought process around it, because I feel chronic illnesses are a lot more similar like mental illnesses, because they're not just in your face, and it's not like a broken bone that you can see and you can acknowledge. I mean, obviously there are other more evident signs, but there are days when it might not be very obvious to the other person that you must be suffering. And the mental toll, this silence and this feeling that people are not understanding, I want to get your thoughts on it. Like, how was that for you, and how did you deal with this psychological impact of this problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, being, first generation Indian American, my entire life, I've been caught between two cultures, right?
Mhm.
And we are not really taught how to regulate that, in a sense, right? So at home, everything's Indian. The minute you walk out the door, everything's Western American, right? It's very, very confusing for those of us, of different cultures born in the US. And, the Indian side, I mean, I would say still today, the culture doesn't promote things like sharing what you're going through, therapy, right? Mental health. We don't talk about this. We don't talk about our feelings, nothing, even today, right? So in a sense, if you think about it, both my cultures were suppressing me. One was through medication, one
Mhm.
was like through culture, right?
Yeah.
And for a 3-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 21-year-old, that's so difficult, because either you have to go on a journey to figure it out, or you never do. And most people never do. Because I was sick, I still never did, until it almost killed me for a fourth time. And then I was like, I've got to figure this out. So when I realized that I had such this detriment, right, to mental, spiritual, emotional health, what that means is, imagine that you live, right, for 3 decades where there's not one moment that you cannot think before you put something into your mouth. You can't just go to a party and there's like, some chips or, some nuts or something like that, and just put your hand in and eat it. You absolutely cannot. You cannot take a drink, you cannot even put on a hand lotion because all that seeps into your skin and your microbiome. So your brain is on 24/7, 24/7, right? And as it was, I had a very high profile job as a chief marketing officer, massive global teams underneath me. So that is taking up most of my brain power. But now think that I still have to be on to think about, what am I going to eat today, right? If I didn't cook, okay, now we're going out, we have a business meeting or something. Now I have to get up and go to the back and talk to somebody, the chef, hopefully, and we've got to deal with all this. It is mentally exhausting and draining, right? And when you then can't talk about how you feel because the environment that you're in doesn't promote it, it's a huge problem. It as you know, it basically becomes chronic stress or chronic worry, anxiety, and stress. And I will tell you that my family always would say to me, why do you always look like you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders? And I thought, because I do, right? Because I truly do. So those realizations are what led me to, when I thought about moving forward after, the 1 year the hives went away, that first part was just, again, healing the physical body. But really step one for me was about mental health and getting my mental health in check. And basically, just like we would do physical fitness, there is mental fitness. And starting to, not really care about what anybody else wanted for me. I was like, I need therapy. And I did. I started therapy. I need to create an environment where I can talk about this to my family, to friends. I need to even talk about it to myself through journaling, through self-talk, all of that. And when I started to do that, right, it became a journey of going from unconscious decisions to now more conscious decisions on my behalf and on the behalf of my health. And it didn't matter anymore what anyone around me, even my own family, thought, because they weren't the one constantly on an ER table dying, right? It was me.
Yeah.
And this was my life.
And I'm sure this must have been a very isolating feeling that, your reason for advocating about this makes sense, that you don't want people who are suffering in a similar way to be feeling alone.
Never. I never, ever want anyone to go through everything that I have gone through, truly. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm living proof that you can heal, right? You can overcome, you can persevere. It takes a lot of hard work. But, at the end of the day, right, I was saying that realization of like, I'm here and how am I living, with the time that I have left? It now became, once I leave this ER, I don't know how much time I have left, right, on the earth. So if I did it one way, great. Let's put that aside now. Let's now move forward in a completely different way, right? Let's take the time for me to get to know me and who I am and what I am and why I am and how I really want to live. And I believe for all of us, whether you have a chronic condition or not, or you're sick or you're healthy, it all truly begins with a foundation of health and well-being, because that's the only way you can thrive, obviously, in your health, your work, and your life. And having all this realization, allowed me to truly move forward in a new way. And I was saying it was a holistic viewpoint of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional health, but in everything that I do now, right? Not just on the health side. It had to be the same in my work. It had to be the same with how I lived my life. So mental health, I believe, is the key that unlocks all the rest of it, right? Because if that is off or suppressed, I just don't feel that you're going to be able to make those great conscious decisions on your behalf.
Yeah.
While your body was really, I would say, suffering, and you were suffering through that, I believe you were in great company out there, and which was a company of your own self. Because as Soumya was mentioning, this could be, I see this as a very lonely journey when there's nobody to relate to, and to kind of set a mindset, figure out the positivity when the things around the ambience is not not pushing you in that direction. So I'm sure when you put out the dimensions of your spiritual self, your mental self, to even go ahead and trust therapy coming from an Indian background, and nothing against the Indian background, it's just the way of being, right?
Yeah.
It's totally a foreign concept over here. Something was very healthy among all of this is how I would put it. And I mean, clearly it was your own company, so it was, you were in great company is how I see. how
Yeah, and look, I mean, they're always. I've been blessed that I have incredible, people that surround me. And the thing that I did now was, it was almost even in my how I would show up, right? Before all of this, I would just kind of show up behind the scenes, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Now I was literally like taking the bull and I was guiding the bull, right? And when I came out of this, my dearest friends, they couldn't believe it. They're like, you have so much energy and stuff. And I said, you know what? Because I'm sick of everything. I'm sick of it. I'm going to change it. I have a whole new energy about it. And guess what? You guys are going to support me. And if you're not, you can't be like in my circle. I just put it out there, right? Here's what I'm going to go and do. I'm going to go figure out how I can start to age, more healthily while trying
yeah,
to get rid of my food allergies. And everyone, including my allergist, said, "Well, I said, no, no, no. There's no negative talk. This is my vision, and I am going to do it. I'm going to figure it out, and I want you to be on my team. But if you are going to be negative or poo poo anything, you can't be on my team because this is what I got to go do." So there was
yeah,
just this like almost like a rebirth that happened right in the ER, that
yeah,
tiny flame, right? And I brought this such a new energy to the food allergy world because back in 2010 is when I built my personal brand, if you can believe it. And I started just blogging about, I called it being brown with food allergies. What does that even mean? Right? I
yeah,
mean, and I used to talk about my parents, didn't even know that you could be allergic to food. And I literally am putting this out there on the web, whoever found it, right? Social media is there. I grew, a following on Facebook. And it was interesting because all these people started coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, my kid has food allergies. Oh, my parent does. Or, oh, I think I have food allergies. And they were like, we never knew what you were going through. And that's true because I was never willing or open to share it. And
yeah.
this now changed where I said that if I don't share it, it could be the death of me as well.
I see this as from being entangled with life, you got involved with life,
Yes.
and you becoming active, as you
Yeah.
said, not being on the backstage,
Yes.
going out there, right?
Yes.
Uh, that's involvement. I mean, if I'm involved with somebody, I'm in anything, right? So, I mean, that's how Sadhguru used to put. I mean, I heard him say it at some point in time. One thing that I mean, you brought in that aging part that you would want to age healthy. And I was reading the book, and you were looking for a North Star. And I think Dr. Govindappa from Arvind Eye Hospital is the reference you took. Now, when I look at that, right, because I've tried to set a North Star for me many a times, there's always a fear of not getting anywhere when I try to do that. And it's a very lonely journey because nobody around me I mean, usually, if I go around, I don't see people having a North Star. They are just going with the flow. And uh, and me included, we would all find ways of justifying that flow. Right? That, you know what, we take life as it comes. In such a scenario, how do you suggest someone who wants to, who would like to have a North Star, but they struggle, they don't have a way to find it? And there are definitions of what really is aspirational. For usually for everyone there is something or the other that is aspirational, but there's little permanence to that aspiration. As we grow, what we like today, maybe what we aspire for. A 10-year-old me wanted to be a driver driving, I don't know how it's put in the American way, but uh, train driver, if there is such a thing, a
Okay.
loco pilot, as they say here, right? Uh, but then that aspiration was only for that time. I mean, it's not that it continued. So, as a North Star, how would you suggest? I mean, how did you go about it? I know, I mean, there is an inspirational story there, but many a times we lack the courage to kind of identify with that, to really assimilate with somebody that great, right? So, I would love to hear
You
your
just
take.
said the right word, right? This entire process, right, of getting healthy is a courageous one, right? And the courage is inside you. Again, you don't want to be in my position where it's forced out of you because you're on an ER table almost dead, right? The thing that I realized was, I was spending so much time at work, right? Again, in an executive position, we're working on strategy, mission, vision, North Stars for the company, values, all of that. I very quickly, when I started putting 3 to B together, realized, hang on a second. I spent all this time doing it for a company that I don't even own, but I own this. Why should I not put those same skills and apply it to myself? So again, this is the engineer in me, right?
Yeah.
And so when I had that realization, I thought, okay, let me think about what we're doing in the marketing team at work, right? We created a vision, a mission, a North Star for our products and services. So I put a whiteboard in my house and I basically did a massive strategy session with myself. A ton of deep questions and journaling and writing things on a whiteboard because I just am visual, need to see it. And then I would have friends come in, who I had chosen and told them that I'm going to be on this path to figure this out. And I would have them come in and I would present to them and say, here's kind of the vision I'm thinking about for my health. Here's my mission and so forth. And we would make it fun, right? I would kind of do this work and then I would put it together like a presentation and I would invite people for a pizza party. And everybody was like, we love this. This is so great. I don't have a vision for my health, Sonia. I don't have a North Star. Should I have one? So again, I just turned the whole process on top of its head. And I said, I've got to have fun. And in order to figure this out, though, there's a big part of it I'm just doing it for somebody else. I'm going to apply that same thing for myself. So North Star, process is a lot of deep questions, right? Again, there's a ton of questions that I ask myself that are in the book. And you have to go to a peaceful place and really, even in meditation, think about these questions, right? When I ask things like, who do I want to be? Right? This process was a process of realizing that I didn't love myself because I wasn't really taking care of myself,
Yeah.
right? I wasn't empowered. I was just on autopilot. This was now a journey to become very empowered, to get to know every part of me and love every part such that it didn't matter what anybody else said, just didn't matter. So when you're thinking about things like your North Star, a vision or a mission for your health, you have to really go deep and ask really hard questions of yourself. Who do you want to be? Why do you want to be? How do you want to spend your time on this earth? What are those things that you want to create in the world? But after every question, I ask an additional one. Why? right? Why do I want to do this? So when I wrote, I want to age healthily while trying to get rid of my food allergies, the next question was why? And I knew the answer, right? Been dead, almost dead too many times, can't live this way, right? Too much, I've got too many things that I want to do in life, too many people I want to help. And if I don't do this, then I've just answered my why. So this process, I always say it wasn't just about physical health. This is now where the mental, spiritual, emotional health pieces come in, because it's inner work. And I did all this work for 10 years. And it doesn't end, right? I still continue, right? I've still continue to meditate, still continue to, tweak year over year. I go back just like you would do in a company, right? I go back to my strategy, my vision, my North Star, and I say, okay, is this still on point? Should it be tweaked? And if it needs to be tweaked for the next year, that's fine. That's totally fine, right? For me, it was very relevant at that time, right? Wanting to age healthily while getting rid of my food allergies. Now I could almost rewrite that statement to say, just even pulling out the food allergy part, wanting to age healthily, because as South Asians, we have a ton of genetic predispositions. So allergies might be gone, but I am predisposed to things like type 2 diabetes, to things like thyroidism, right? So that journey never ends. And just like, again, in a business, your vision for 2024, and then you have a set of strategies that you execute. I did the same thing for my health. Now going into 2025, there will be an exercise this year to say, what did I accomplish? What does my vision look like next year? Do I continue the vision? Do I not? So the biggest, like I said, realization was what you're doing in the workplace, you have the skills. You just now need to apply it to yourself and your health.
I think there is no better selling pitch for the business process. I would say that because it's as real as it can get.
Right?
I mean, if you've internalized the process, is what I would say, and to apply it to your own self, one cannot do that if they are not really, really into it. So that's where I see this as what I see this as is uh, it's acceptance at one level. Even the statement that I would want to age, that itself is an acceptance of the fact that there is aging that's going to happen, right? And I want to age well, and the process that you apply, the process, to you, there's no better selling. I can just keep going on because I'm just taken over by that. In that case, how do you find a tribe? Because and I was going through the 3 to B process, which I didn't get a chance to talk about. I mean, uh, there is one of the steps is to find people, right? Find your people around you. Now, I see in a condition like what you were in, it's really lonely, uh, and it's courageous. You created you found your North Star, took the initiative, but then it's very tough for others to understand what you're going through. And at least in the Eastern setups, in the South Asian setup, uh, there's a strong family influence. You don't choose your family consciously, I would say, right? At a deeper level, maybe, but uh, practically, you don't. You are in a particular setup. There are people who are in a given way, and as and when, I don't know if it's the right thing to say, but as and when, it's a pyramid in some way. You get lonelier and lonelier as you go up. If you're the so-called achiever, so how do you build that tribe of your support system around you consciously? How do you do that? Do you convert to others' ways, or is there a constant way of making yourself more acceptable? Because in the book also you talk about initially you're trying to fit in, right? And then the advocacy part comes in, which we were discussing, and we had very strong opinions, positive ones, but strong. They were coming out internally. So I would love to understand, how do you get your people? I don't know if your people, but the people that your tribe.
Yeah, it's a process, right? I do think, the internet, social media has made it easier to find people who are going through similar things that you do, right? Back when I was diagnosed, there was no group of people that had food allergies who were, under age 10 and South Asian, right? I mean, we didn't know anybody in the Philadelphia area who had food allergies. So I can only imagine how lonely it was for my parents, let alone how lonely it was for me as a young child, right? But for me at that age, like I just didn't understand anything. And what I ended up doing was, I say that I was in the background. I hid myself, one, because we're not taught in the US school system and culturally, we're not taught to actually figure out who we are. Even at an older age, right? We just are not taught that. So I just wanted to blend in to everybody else to be what was quote unquote normal. And I defined normal from the setting around me, right? In the area of Philadelphia and my school and the friends that I had. And that definition, as I learned, many years later, was the wrong definition, right? Of what's normal. What's normal is really like how I defined it. I didn't define it until I did all of this work, right? So I feel like from a young age, you just gather people, friends around you. And if they're with you as you age, right, you kind of know their quirks and this and that. Now, at some point, hopefully, there's psychological safety with some of them such that even if they're not your parents, you can begin to open up and talk about what's going on. And for me, that just didn't happen until a later age, right? I wanted to like be cool, be part of the cool crowd, didn't want anyone to think like, because food allergies, again, no one's talking about food allergies. So people are like, you can't eat food? Like, what does that mean, right? Then think about it. Maybe then I'm not getting invited to the party. Why would I talk about it? So what I've realized in all of this is that first friend that you need to have is yourself, right? This is why you have to do all the inner work. This is why you have to come out of this rising up, not caring about anybody else and what they think, because the right people absolutely will find you. And I do think social media and all these beautiful communities of people going through the same thing, they have provided us such incredible value now where we can meet people. I will say that I am a very much like in real life person. So the social aspect of it online is one thing, but I think, to really kind of be seen, you want to have those in-person connections, right? You want to be able to hang out with somebody who knows, who you feel comfortable talking to, who says, let's go for dinner. And this is essentially what my friends did, right? Let me tell you let me back up for a minute. After I got out of the ER and some time had passed, I ended up having a dinner party at my house and invited a specific set of very dear friends. And I walk them all through what happened in the ER and what the diagnosis was and everything like that. And what I said to them is, so I've invited you all here for two reasons. One, because I am choosing you. Like, here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go figure out why this keeps happening. And as a part of that process, I am building my tribe. And I'm choosing you to be in that tribe. But as a part of that, I am going to rely on you in certain ways. And one of those ways means I need to know if you know how to use an EpiPen. Do you? So everybody basically said no. But they were like, what's that? We're so excited about it. So we made it fun, right? We had great food, great wine. We're having a lot of fun. And we practiced how to use an EpiPen with not a real one, but, a tester. And we just, there was seriousness in it as well. Because what I said is, I'm choosing you. And part of me choosing you means that if we are anywhere and something is happening, you have permission to go into my purse. I will always have an EpiPen with me. And you have permission to inject it into me if I cannot do it myself. and this is like I need you to hear that you're accepting like this kind of role in my life, because I'm almost literally putting my life in your hands. But that was a very select group of friends, not that everybody around who was not invited would not have helped, right? But these were the people I felt psychologically safe with. And I said that over time, I'm going to start to open up more, right, about what I've been going through, because even with all of you guys, I haven't. So I think that that first step is you and all of your realizations and being your friend to you, to have the courage to say, I can't do this alone. It really, really takes a tribe. And there are many tribes out there in the world, whether they're social media or in person. You will find those right people as you age. I absolutely believe you will. And you will shed many people, because they'll just you'll put them in that acquaintance bucket, right? But in order to find the ones that you feel safe with, that you feel like you can rely on, you have to put yourself out there. And you have to start sharing your story, because the world needs you to share your story. So that's how I did it. And then I started to expand that group, a little bit, but it will never be like hundreds or millions of people, right? It's always going to be those people that I feel that psychological safety with, that I could call up and just say, you know what, I'm just having a really terrible day because like this and this happened, and I just need a friend, right? But the only way that I can, get that reciprocity in a sense is if I give it, right?
Yeah.
And if I put myself out there. So that's how I built my tribe.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Having a close group of people that you can trust does affect does make you more stronger in dealing with difficult situations. And definitely this aspect, like as you said, that you have to be your own friend is very important, but having a tribe is it just makes you stronger. We talked a lot about health throughout, but there's one thing that I feel that people are not very sure of what exactly it means to be healthy, because mostly we have an idea that if we go to the gym and if we are taking care of our physical health, we and having a good diet, that means that we are healthy. So I would like to hear your take on what does it actually mean to be healthy?
And it's a great question. And so, in textbooks, India,
Yeah.
US, they will
Mhm.
define what that means. I say you have to define it for yourself. When I was a teenager, we had made a trip to India, and we were at one of my mom's sister's homes. And, there actually, the story is in my book. And
Mhm.
where we were eating, like, Indian sweets have a lot of nuts, and I have, had a severe nut allergy. And again, that connection isn't there. It's like, oh, I cannot have that because I have a nut allergy. Oh, well, then don't eat the whole thing, just eat a piece of it. And it's like, well, no, I can't eat it at all, right? So we
Yeah.
started to talk about, get into this conversation about the allergies, because of all the cousins, I was really the only one at that time that had these allergies. And which went into a conversation about health. And there was kind of this blanket statement about, weight, and that how, as all of us first cousins got older, we were all just going to be heavy. And I just thought that was like a ludicrous blanket statement, that somebody in the family made. And I thought, how could you even like say that? We're all so individualistic, right? And it was at that time that I had this like flashback, and I thought about all the adults around me in any country, and especially in the US, and they all had like this box that had like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and there was a pill, right? And I thought, oh my God, I never, ever, 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 ever want to be in a situation where as I'm aging, it's just understood that you're going to take a bunch of pills. And so for me, right, that was my like definition of like, I never, ever want to be that. So what is the work that I need to do in order to make sure that doesn't happen. That's how I was seeing what healthy meant. It meant not taking that, what I call the old lady pill box, with me everywhere. So again, like it's very like individualistic. What I learned later in 2008 was that because that statement back when I was a teenager was about physical health. But what I learned in 2008 was it's actually not just about physical health. It's holistic health, which is physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health, all together in harmony. So when I kind of redefined this after 2008, right, when I wrote even like a North Star, what that meant to me was that those 4 areas are always in harmony, in flow. And that I had learned skills like resilience and adaptability, right? Because there's always going to be ups and downs in your health, in your work, in your life, right? They're all so interconnected. And so I wanted to have a set of skills now that if something happened, then I would be able to, bounce back and bounce forward in a new way to deal with it. And this is kind of what healthy means to me today. There is no state of perfection with your health, right? So it wasn't about achieving that, but it was really about bringing that harmony and that flow to the 4 areas. And it's a lifelong process. I work on all 4 areas on a daily basis still today. So I think you have to really, again, sit down with yourself, journal, think about it. How do you define it? There's absolutely no wrong answer. And maybe at that time, like for me, it meant, aging, it's aging healthy while getting rid of my food allergies. Great. Now I'm past that. Well, aging healthily as a foundation is still there. Maybe now it's aging healthily while having the skills, to be resilient and adaptable to any health issues that may come my way, right? Asking the right questions, being able to go to the right people. Now, being able to advocate for myself. So it's okay if that changes over time, but I believe that you need to actually take the time to sit down and define it. And then tell it to the world. Get a blog site and just start, declare it to the world. This is how I define healthy for me. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And I just want to tell, the billion people out there.
Beautiful. Now, I have a good number of questions from our users, and it's a long list. We'll try to answer as many as the
Sure.
time permits. I know the clock is ticking. And we can never have enough of this. I mean, there is so much that still remains to be
Yeah,
discussed out. So maybe we'll do a part 2 of this at some point in
I
time,
love it.
whenever time permits and your availability is there, Sonia. So I'll go with the first question. This question we have received from Vancouver, Canada. I've been struggling with long COVID, and it feels like there's no end in sight. The fatigue and brain fog are particularly tough to deal with. Last couple of years have been hell for me. Initially, people were supportive, but over time, most of my friends have drifted apart. I also had to let go of my job. Advocating for myself in medical setting has been really challenging, especially when doctors don't take my symptoms seriously anymore and don't know how to help me. I don't know how to get the care I need and deserve. Also, it's so hard to deal with uncertainty and unpredictability of my chronic illness. Do you have any advice for me? I know it's a long
Hmm.
question, but I'm sure this person is
Well,
going through a lot.
sending this person so much love and healing energy. And I too, when I left the ER in 2008, I left with like a bag full of medication. I was taking like 30 pills a day, which was causing brain fog. And I would be in meetings and I just would be like blank stare. And I felt like my brain like was not working. So I definitely can empathize and relate, to those feelings. You know, I'll just say that I think it's really important to start to document kind of like cause and effect, right? When this is happening, this is how I'm feeling. It could be like, if I'm eating this, it's causing me to feel this way. I'm in the middle of the day and all of a sudden I have like a rush where my brain just, this is how I'm feeling. So one, I would say just getting your, thoughts in a sense organized on exactly what's happening is data that helps whomever now are the health practitioners that you might, go for, for help in this. So best your body, right? Our body is always telling us information. We're just not listening or hearing the information it's telling. And so that's why I'm saying, I think step one, a good step would be just to start documenting kind of like what's happening, what you're feeling, at what times. Does it happen when you eat something? Does it happen when you exert yourself at the gym? Does it happen when you're feeling stress, from a relationship or work, right? That's the one piece. The second piece now is, I would say, and this takes time to find the right types of practitioners to help. And I found, East and West practitioners, because I spent a lot of time talking to many practitioners, physicians, practitioners, and saying that, here's what I'm trying to figure out. How would you go about this? And if I didn't like their answer, I scratched them off my list. And that's why, I'm saying that I worked all of this for 10 years, right? It takes time because I was very empowered to figure this out, but I had to be working with people that took it seriously, that put me in a psychologically safe space to say, like, I am feeling this. And many, many physicians just do not. And it's a massive issue in the US. And this is why you have I'm also certified as an integrative nutrition and health coach, and that kind of role is there because patients are like, the doctor doesn't want to give me the time I need to understand what's happening. So I think that second step is to say, let me now go and find who the right practitioners are, right? They could be Ayurvedic, they could be homeopathy, they could be functional medicine, they could be therapists. It could be a combination of all of it, which is what I had. And when you have that like data of this, like I've been tracking for a month, 2 months, 3 months, right? And I don't want to feel this way anyway. Now it's about finding the right people to really take you seriously, put you in the psychologically safe space and help you figure this out. And it can happen. And then the third piece I would say is become empowered to do a ton of research from, notable, Harvard, NIH, not TikTok, not Instagram, any of that, right? I have read so much research on food allergies and microbiome, gut microbiome, everything. So I was very informed, right? There's long COVID is still new. So I think there's so much that needs to come out of it. So I would say be educated and do that research. But the other part of the education is about how your body system works. And for this also, I would say that's testing, right? So there are companies out there. Now, Mark Hyman is a good example. He has a new company called Function Health, and they test over 100 biomarkers. Again, that's data for you. And the reason why you might consider doing something like that is because it's telling you how your body system works and is deficient. If you're feeling brain fog, that doesn't mean it's like something wrong with your brain. It could be completely something different, right? So it is a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of work when I say it, but this is the empowered you now, right? You're not relying on other people because they're not, like doing it for you. You are really going to try to figure this out. You're going to give yourself the grace because it takes time. And I would say, go into communities on Facebook, right? Private communities where people have these kinds of symptoms, and be courageous to open up, because people like me will be there and saying, oh my God, I had the same thing. Here's what I did. Yeah. Right. Or if you need a friend, I'm here to talk to you. Right. So I would say those are like 4 things that I would recommend to kind of get started. And again, give yourself a lot of grace because it takes time.
Yeah. Wonderful. Beautiful. I'll go to the next question. This one is from Lucknow in north of India. I suffer from chronic migraine and believe me, it's really debilitating. I have tried so many medications, but nothing works as a long term relief. I lose almost 7 to 8 working days in a month because of this. As such, I look very fit. Sometimes it feels like no one understands how much these migraines impact my life. It's really frustrating. How did you handle the frustrations and isolations that come with an invisible illness? What helped you communicate your needs to those around you?
So I would say I was a migraine sufferer in my 20s. And so I absolutely know how debilitating it can be. I mean, you can't even, everything has to be dark in the room. You know, you can't even have the sunlight. So I'm so sorry to hear that. Uh, well, so the way I answered the first question, I would say consider these as well, right? In terms of migraines, I don't think it's an invisible illness. Again, this is the part where it's the work is on you to really find those right people who understand and can give that support, right? Because that narrative of how you talk to yourself to say like, oh, it's invisible illness, I don't think that's an invisible illness, right? So, and sorry, the second, what was the question? His question was,
Yeah, I'll go to the second part, but that's
yeah,
very empowering that it's not invisible.
it's not
That's the
invisible.
point. What helped you communicate your needs to those around you?
Yeah, I think that, when I say like being in the ER, this wave of just disgust, kind of came upon me where I just lived my life like so sick and everything was debilitating, right? Like chronic worry, anxiety, and stress for decades, right? And then allergies was one thing. I mean, asthma, whole other part, right? Environmental allergies, whole other part. And I think just in that disgust, I just said, I have to turn the tables in a new way. Because if you don't, it's that classic definition of insanity, right? Hitting your wall, doing the same exact thing, hitting your wall, and there's no different outcome. So in a sense, you do feel like you're going insane because maybe nobody believes you, maybe no one out there can help you. I think you have to almost like flip it. And the first thing is that I literally looked in the mirror and I was like, this is real. I saw it all over my body, right? I was like, this is real. It doesn't matter what anybody says. I've already put them on the side. I have to move forward in a new way. What is that new way? Part of that new way to me was to bring life to food allergies. So how can, and that was about advocation, right? How do you bring life to the fact that you're going through migraines for hours on a daily basis, like, consecutively? How do you talk about that to people to really have them empathize with you, right? Including the physicians that you might be working with. So I would say that it's so easy, and I did this for decades. I just was in my pity party for so long, right? And it gets scary when you feel like, it's just never going to change. And this is why I'm saying that empowerment piece is so, so, so important, right? You have to look in the mirror and say to yourself, this is not invisible. This is real because it's my reality. And my reality matters, right? Even if you write it down and you look at it every day, that this is my reality. I have migraines. Here's how it makes me feel. When I eat, here's how it makes me feel. When I go out with my friends, I can't go out with my friends, right? Here's how it affects my work. Now that articulation is the next step is let me try to find the right people to help me figure out the root cause, right? This is what our Eastern medicine is about, the root cause of why is all this happening. Because you don't want to go forward for more decades, suffering in the way you are, right? It's a journey from barely surviving to really thriving. But so much of it depends on you getting really aligned with yourself and seeing things differently because you deserve it, right? And then it's kind of like managing everyone else to help you in your journey. That's how I look at it. Don't rely on them to fix it. You manage them to help you. You're the one who's going to be fixing things.
Beautiful. Sonia, you want to take the third one?
Yeah, so the next question comes from Hyderabad. I recently read somewhere about how our body and mind is connected. have been exploring that concept a lot and came to an understanding that healing the body requires healing the mind as well. But I am clueless as to where to start. What could healing even look like? Where do I begin?
Well, again, I think this is a great exercise for you to sit down and define what healing looks like to you. And I think the first question I would ask is, are you dealing with something in the realm of mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional health that you feel is off, not working, right? It doesn't have to be a physical health issue, it could be spiritual, that you want to work through, right? Um, I would actually sit down and identify that and as a current state, right? Here's where the business stuff comes in again. And then I would dream of what your optimal state looks like, right? So I'll give you an example. When I did this work, my current state was, just had anaphylaxis in the ER, have hives all over my body. Optimal state is no hives on my body, no food allergies. So the question then, if you look at XY axis, is how do I get from here to here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is how you're defining healing. I'm taking all these little steps to get toward this optimal state. Well, what is that optimal state to you? Sit down and get a journal, get a whiteboard, start defining it. There's no wrong answer. But again, I would come back to, is there something in the realm of those 4 areas, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, that you feel like is a struggle or something that is unwell that you want to maneuver through? That would be like the first starting point.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'll go to the last question for now. And I have 4 more here, but I'll take one. This one is from a parent. And my 4-year-old has been recently diagnosed with celiac disease. It's a gluten related condition. While we have made food changes, no rotis anymore in the roti heavy diet of ours, as a parent, what else should we manage other than the food? This comes from Gurgaon in close to Delhi.
Yes. So let's come back to, right? We've been taught all our lives it's about physical health. That was incorrect. It's about the 4 areas: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. And they're all interconnected. So even though, and I'm so sorry to hear about the celiac and the gluten, I know how very hard that is. Even though you are making changes to the physical diet, I would come back to those 3 other areas and really have conversations on what does the impact look like mentally. As someone who has suffered from severe food allergies, all of my life, I will tell you that the mental, spiritual, emotional detriment was almost harder to overcome than the physical side, because you have to almost rewire, right? You feel like you're broken. You feel like, you're sick 24 hours a day. You feel not normal. And these are harder things to unwire than, say, we're not going to eat gluten anymore, right? So I would really start to have conversations around the other 3 areas. You can absolutely get help from, health practitioner, like a therapist or health coach, like in those areas, to help you have conversations, right? And even think about it, if you eat out, you have to relay all this information to the restaurant as well, right? So there's a lot of just fear in all of that. And that's why I'm saying that fear isn't necessarily tied to like what you're eating. It's in the other 3 areas. So I would definitely kind of, start to think about how is this issue connected to these other 3 parts. And then again, like I'm just big on writing things down and working on a whiteboard so that you can see it, right? Because sometimes otherwise it's in our head. But the more that you can see and say like, oh, yeah, I realize that, I have, for example, I have a lot of stress when I eat at a restaurant because I don't believe that the food they're giving me is gluten-free. How do I maneuver through that? Right? And now, you kind of get the help to figure out how to do that, and then you can cross something off your list, right? That's why I kind of believe in really having it in front of you and seeing it, because that's a problem that you're trying to solve. So I would say, think about the impact, the effects that this now celiac has on more than just the physical body in the other areas, and start to get some understanding of how you maneuver through those as well.
Wonderful. With that, we would go towards the end of in fact, with that, we are reaching the end of this particular session. Sonia, what's this 3 to B program? If you could talk a bit on that, and how can our users get access to that?
Yes. Well, so you can find me at soniahunt.com, SONIAHUNT. It has a link to my book, has a link to my TED Talk, email, LinkedIn, social media, please connect. 3 to B was when I was saying that, I was getting out of the ER and I felt like I needed a program and there was no program. And so I said, okay, let's create a program. And it is called 3 to B because it's 3 steps to be healthy, be safe, and be well. And that is like a mantra from my parents. When I started to write this book, I said, when you had children, what was your one wish for them? And they said, we were always grateful that they were physically healthy and safe. And I believe they meant you always want your children to be physically safe. And then they wanted us to prosper in life, right? And I thought, what a beautiful wish for all of humanity, right? And so those are kind of the 3 big areas. And now when you think of, steps of how can you be healthy, how can you be safe, how can you be well, I've broken it out into the things that to consider across mental, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health, right? And it starts with everything from mindset and mental health around your health issues or your health. It goes into how do you pick the right tribe to support you. It goes into steps of, again, testing and getting the data that you need to start making informed decisions, right? How do you become empowered? It talks about steps of how do you start advocating for yourself. So all these big things that I need to do, I just put it in a step-by-step process, like a 3x3. And then there's essentially those chapters in the book that talk about a story and how, what I struggled with and then how I did it. So I think for anybody who kind of needs a program, and I wasn't looking for a program that was so prescriptive, because again, there's no doctor out there that can say, yes, you will absolutely go into remission after doing XYZ, right? It's a lot of work. And that's why I say this is a journey of healing. 3 to B is all about healing, but it starts to really dig into you becoming empowered and you having that right information, structurally to get from one current state to the optimal outcome. But you're defining what those optimal outcomes are.
Beautiful. This reminds me that when we have a platform here where we have different programs that we offer through it, different experts do. So, and it's very therapy based. So a lot of clinical psychology is involved in that. Now, when we started, mostly the therapists that we were finding were very friendly to the patients in their lingo, if I have to go to that. So what we realize that it's a spectrum. On one end, we have more friendliness. At the other one, it's totally prescriptive, very guru-like, right? That this is what you need to do. And what we found to be the optimal place in this is that any program has to be like Krishna, or a therapist has to be like that to Arjun from Mahabharata, right? That it is somebody you can respect.
Yes.
And you have to listen to, but at the same time, it's very friendly. You can treat him like a friend, right? So that was a sweet spot that we, just sharing on that note. Beautiful. So anything great, however great that is finite. At least in this word. So it's been it's been a long awaited talk. I mean, we've all been waiting to do this, and we are not full yet. We are still thirsty. So maybe some point in time, whenever you're available for this, we'll do this once again, Sonia.
I'd be happy to. There is, and again, like this, I mean, what a journey for me, right? What a health transformation at the end. But I will say it took a lot of grit, it took a lot of perseverance. And every single day when I woke up and I looked in the mirror, I just said, I love you. You can do this. You're going to do this. It doesn't matter how long it takes because, again, our health, it's not a finite end, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm in remission, but there's all these other things, right, that we're dealing with, COVID, genetic predispositions, all of this. So this, I want everyone to think of getting healthy as their life's work.
Yeah.
That's what I
Beautiful.
would say.
I think that's something we can all reflect upon. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for this, Sonia.
Thank
We
you.
are all looking forward to do much more on this end. And to all our audience, wherever you are listening or watching this, please subscribe so that you can get more of this. Visit soniahunt.com so that you can get to know more about her. And of course, you'll get all of this on the OMA map. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.